Yeah, boy, it's July 28th, and it's episode 115, and this is the Fantasy Football Auctioneer. I'm your host, Uncle Buckets. The Fantasy Football Auctioneer is the official podcast of thefantasyfootballauction.com, the internet's only website dedicated to fantasy football auctions. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/fantasyfootballauctioneer, or follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Fantasy Auction. You can also join us in an all-auction Twitter community at FF Auction Advice. Connect with auction players from all over the Twitter sphere. We've got a great show for you tonight. Tonight we're going to talk roster moves, signings, and we're going to take a look at players who are overvalued and undervalued. But of course, they're always here. Actually, we're all here tonight. That hasn't happened in a month probably now. First off, he's back from Vegas, back from the golf trip, and now he's lacing up girls' hockey skates. Blister, this summer officially started today?
You know what? My first day off felt like it was on Monday, and so yeah, I felt like I've had 2 days off now, and it feels good to be able to start really diving into some fantasy football here. I've been mock drafting, and doing some other drafts, and I can't wait for next. Well, I don't want to rush the days away, but on Monday I got 2 big auction drafts starting, so it's heating up, baby. It's heating up.
Well, and can't think of the last time you phoned me from your Bluetooth in the truck to say, I just can't wait to draft. I just can't wait to draft. So he's revved up. He's revved up, and I had to shut the boys down here before we got on the air so that they could save it for the air. I think Slim's a little revved up too. So he's hoping he hasn't had too many pops tonight, and he can be coherent on the podcast. Slim, how's the equilibrium tonight?
Well, if I fall out of my chair, you'll know it's a mess, but no, I feel pretty good.
What if Blister does?
Well, I was going to say, if I fall on my chair like Blister, but I wanted to save it. Didn't want to start anything until we get talking rankings and stuff. And
he hasn't fallen out of his chair for a long time. Blister, you're in a new
got a new one. It's good to go.
Oh, I moved upstairs, baby. Moved out of the cellar.
No wheels and shit. It's all firm on the floor now.
But it was so
stable.
Fun to watch. Just all of a sudden, his head would just disappear from the camera, and he'd be gone. It's good. It's good. Anyways, all right, guys, we got a ton of stuff to talk about tonight, so let's just get right into it. If you guys are ready, then I'm ready. Let's cock the hammer. It's time for action. So like we said, we got a great show for you tonight. We got lots of Twitter questions and Facebook questions, and even got an email question in. Actually, we could have spent a whole episode just on from that guy from the Netherlands. What a question that was! Holy, wow!
Oh, Jerome! Shout out to you, Jerome.
Shout out! Worldwide is what we are. That's two guys from the Netherlands we've had ask questions. I'm sure that's not the same guy. Am I right?
Jerome's competition. He won't like to hear that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe. Wouldn't that be something if they're both in the same league? How many auction leagues could there be over there?
I wonder.
Good question. Anyways, so I just want to drop a quick little bit about the membership site before we get rolling. So with the end of July begins the NFL training camps. It's now that the true fantasy football auction preparation can begin. Don't be disappointed with your auction draft. You know what I mean, and I know what you mean when I walk out of a draft and I feel like I could have done so much more. Could have spent more money, more of my budget money, or maybe I could have waited till the middle of the tiers, that horseshoe we talk about, to pick up my wide receiver one. I could have actually got the tattoo done. All those things. I know last year things could have just gone better in the auction draft. So what can you do to make things better? These are things we talk about all the time. Get on Twitter. There are beat writers that you can follow on there, so you can get the inside track into training camps. You can listen to podcasts, obviously, like ours. You can subscribe to different newsletters and stuff like that. And last but not least, my advice to you is that don't buy a magazine. Magazines, as everyone knows, are compiled in May, printed in June, hit the newsstands in July, and you just can't count on that out-of-date information. Like we're going to hit you in the news, the Le'Veon Bell news, for instance. That's not going to be printed in that magazine. So You can find out how we can help you. You can learn more about a premium membership site. We are the first and only all-auction membership site on the internet. So to learn more, head on over to the website, The Fantasy Football Auction, and click on the members area to learn more about how our membership site can help you out. It's a $14.95, so I don't know, a couple of pints maybe. And after you win your championship, you'll win some cash and some pride, and your boys will be buying you pints. So it'll all work out. Do we buy pints when we win? I don't remember getting pints when we win.
You buy a lot. Maybe smaller than a pint.
Yeah, but you don't buy me a pint when I won, and I didn't buy
you
you a pint
buy
when you
it.
won.
You should be buying us.
You're buying everybody else. Yeah, that's all good. All right. Anyways, that just ruined
everything. Zoom buys them all.
Oh yeah, Zoom. Well, yeah. Zoom buys them all because you win the belt. That's a whole different story. Anyways, let's get into the first segment, guys. We got a lot of questions here. So the first segment's called "We Just Got a Letter." So just a reminder, you can hit us up on Twitter at Fantasy Auction. You can email us if it's longer than 140 characters, like our buddy Jerome did from the Netherlands. We are footballauctioneer@gmail.com. So here we got a ton of questions, and we got one from Facebook actually tonight, which we don't normally get, so that's good too. You can hit us up on there for longer ones as well. So the first question here is a wide receiver question. Wants to take a look. This is our buddy Mr. Gibby. He wants to know wide receiver duos who are undervalued number twos. So sorry, we're undervalued wide receiver duos where undervalued number twos could outproduce or come close to their overvalued number ones. So his example here is like Emmanuel Sanders or Demaryius Thomas or Golden Tate and Megatron or Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson from last year. So he wants to look at where are some duos on a team where the second wide receiver is undervalued. He could outproduce his counterpart who may be overvalued. Blister, go. Got any duos?
Well, I have a couple that I wrote down that I think could happen. I really like Randall Cobb. He goes for less money than Jordy Nelson, and I just have a feeling he could outproduce him this year. He signed a big contract. He's there. We didn't even expect him to be there. But last year's stats, Jordy finishes number 2, number 3 in PPR, 98 grabs, just over 1,500 yards and 13 TDs. Cobb wasn't far behind with 91 grabs for 1,287 yards and 12 TDs. Nelson's coming off some hip surgery. Should be good to go for the start of camp, but he's coming off hip surgery. He's not getting any older. He's going to be 30. I just think that Cobb could easily surpass him this year, and they're going to pay maybe $10 less for him in the draft. He's still going to come off the board as one of your top 9-10 receivers probably, but still there's a bit of value to be had there, especially if he outproduces Nelson.
All right, Slim, any feedback there, or this is where I had to rein you in. So any other duos or any feedback for Blister?
Well, I agree with Blister and the Cobb and Nelson completely. I just finished my NFC North breakdown, and I talked at some length about kind of the red flags that Jordy Nelson could have this year. I don't like the fact that he's coming off this hip surgery. I mean, it could very well be nothing. But again, like Blister said, he's getting older. If it is anything, then why can't Cobb surpass Nelson this year?
Hold on, just before you move forward, I'm just looking at the AAVs right now, Slim, just because I was like, well, let's see, like how over and undervalued are they? Right now, we've got Randall Cobb's AAV's $42 and Jordy Nelson's is $44, so they're going for about the same price here.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
yeah. I don't think Nelson's necessarily overvalued.
We got him way undervalued, actually, but as a VI goes.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we'll get into this maybe a little bit later.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, there's so many elite wide receivers this year. Some guys are going to be undervalued. We're seeing it with AJ Green, which we can get into this later. It blows me away. Alshon Jeffrey, Jordy Nelson's another guy. Calvin Johnson. It's just because Odell Beckham's in the mix now. Antonio Brown's up at number 1 now. Like, there's just so many guys. There's going to be some undervalued guys for sure. So, and he's definitely one of them. I think age is a factor. But yeah, like I said, we can get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, for sure. So other duos. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Just I wanted to take a look quick.
Well, I personally, I don't have too many other duos. I know Blister, and this is kind of what I think you were talking about. I know he likes LaFell a lot, maybe more so than Edelman. I'm kind of in the other circle of that. I like Edelman still more than LaFell. I just think he's safer. To me, LaFell is boom and bust in a PPR league, especially Edelman. To me, is still a full tier more valuable than LaFell. And then Decker and Marshall, we also talked about, and I mean, I still like Marshall more. I think Decker's a hell of a receiver. To me, Geno Smith is just gonna kind of be the equalizing factor here. I don't think the gap's necessarily that huge between the two, and it wouldn't shock me if Decker outproduced Marshall by any means. I still do like Marshall slightly ahead of Decker, though.
All right. So Blister, are you thinking about Edelman and LaFell? I'm just thinking about the auction value, right? So you're going to spend $15 to $20 on Edelman right now, and $5 or $6 on Brandon LaFell.
Probably, and the thing is, it's hard to pick out like 1-2 duos that are, big names that you're going to see. Expect those expectations where the number 2 surpasses. But I think in LaFell's case, it took him a little while to get comfortable with the offense there in New England, and when he did, he started to become quite impactful week in and week out. He ended up having 5 games out of his 15 that were single-digit fantasy points. Edelman, on the other hand, had 4 out of his 16 that were single-digit fantasy points. So 1 quarter for Edelman, 1/3, 5 out of 15, 1/3 for LaFell. I just think that the numbers were similar in the yardage. LaFell had 953 yards, Edelman 972. Where Edelman's numbers surpassed him, he had 18 more catches, so that's 18 more fantasy points. But LaFell had 3 more touchdowns, so there's 18 more fantasy points. So I think in the long run, I think Edelman's numbers could be similar. 85 to 95 catches, maybe just under 1,000 yards. Probably not going to get in the end zone a whole lot more. I think LaFell could go up in catches. With that, his yardage will, and I think he could find the end zone more if he becomes a reliable number 2, say, target to Gronk around the end zone. So I think the biggest factor here that could hurt both the guys, though, is no Tom Brady now. So Tom Brady sits out his suspension. Obviously these guys, the accuracy and the level of quarterback play could hinder these guys enough that maybe they both take a hit in their rankings and stuff going forward. But I think it could happen. I mean, he last year Edelman finished 17th and LaFell 22nd, so it's not a huge stretch by any means, but it could be something there. And then at Decker and Marshall, I've had arguments in the ECL league about this. Guy loves Marshall still, and I mean, I don't hate Marshall. There's no doubt. My thinking is, he's not getting any younger. Last year he only had 61 catches, 721 yards, and 8 TDs. Decker kind of surprised me last year. I didn't expect him to do as well as he did. 74 catches, 962 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Not bad for that Jets kind of offense, which isn't great. Geno Smith had his struggles. They had struggles at QB, but I guess what Decker does have going for him is he's been there for a year, and he's got a little more chemistry, you could say, with Geno, and I think they've been working hard at it. He's a little younger, so he's a big-bodied receiver still, too. So I just think in the long run, Decker probably should outproduce Marshall, I mean, depending on who you talk to, they might see Decker as the number 1, Marshall as the number 2, but most people, I think, would have Marshall slotted in as the number 1 and Decker the number 2.
My big thing between those two, though, is AAV on Marshall right now. And I mean, some guys are drafting this weekend, right? Blister, we got the one ESPN league, I think, that I won last year coming this weekend. Marshall for $19 and Eric Decker for $8, right? And if they're even produced the same.
Yeah, if they produce identical stats, well, obviously the $8 guy is the one you wanted to have.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah. All right, good stuff, guys. Slim, we're going to come to you for the next one to start anyways. Vacation Beer Lover at Drink Pacifico. I think I like this guy already. He's asking fantasy. It's kind of like a couple weeks ago when I end up at the brewery and the guy plays Devi Dynasty football, the Brewmaster does. Like, I was in absolute heaven. I almost busted out the growler and just thought I'm going to drink the whole growler tonight. But I think I'll save it for the mock next week. I got a nice growler from the Sleeping Giant, so shout out to those guys. Anyway, so see what kind of values I get at the end after I pound a growler. Anyway, so at Drink Pacifico asks, what would your strategy be if many other people are going wide receiver heavy, or if wide receivers are just going for more money in general? Slim, any suggestions there on that strategy?
Wow, you threw me when you said pounding a growler. It just made a flashback to college. And just, for totally different reasons. Anyway, to the question.
They didn't have growlers and beer bottles then, did they?
That's what I mean. Yeah, there was a different type of growler back then.
Yeah.
What would your strategy be? Well, I mean, to me, it's in any auction, it comes down to one thing. You want to do something different than what everyone else in the auction is doing. If you see everybody spending big on wide receivers early, that means I'm going to look towards running backs, and I'm going to look towards maybe, the wide receiver 2s, and think there's going to be values found in the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. So, yeah, I'm going to spend my money on, for sure, on some decent running backs. I'm not going to be scared of that, and I'm going to know that there's going to be some values most likely coming later on in the wide receiver position.
Blister, anything to add to that?
I wasn't listening.
I know
2 words. Get Gronk, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Obviously, get Gronk and some great running backs, which, you got to have a limit, right? If guys spend way too much on their 1 or 2 receivers, then they're going to be pretty thin everywhere else. So hopefully he'll make that difference up. So yeah, Gronk is a guy you could target. He'll be a difference maker in that tight end area, and how Gronk interests me. You see him go in these mock auctions sometimes well over $50, and good Lord, I just can't imagine paying that for a tight end. What do you think? No, not if it goes like that. Like last year, I was prepared to go to about $35 for him, I think, which was still about $30 more than I probably ever paid for a tight end in my life. But this year, I think it's going to be crazy. So I don't know what he'll go for in ours. It'll be interesting to see.
It's hard to say, eh?
Be interesting to see what Bots will pay for him. Oh no, Bots isn't in that one. Okay, never mind.
Slim, we're going to go to you for question number 3. This is from Derek Myers. We're getting to know him pretty well. I'm going to get to know him in the fan league, the Scotty Fish Bowl. So at DA Myers 10, he asks, I seem to spend big money on wide receivers. So how about some undervalued RBs? And I know we're going to get into that, but Slim, any quick RBs you want to throw his way?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to define what undervalued is without any figure. Right. But if we look, say, outside the top 24, so outside of the consensus top RB2s, some guys that I look for, LeGarrette Blount is a guy that I like. I think he can have some huge weeks for you this year. Chris Ivory is another guy that I like to target. Depending on how high you are on Doug Martin, I mean, if you watch the training camp battles and he does beat out Charles Sims, he's going for quite cheap, and you can get a starting running back for maybe less than $10 there. PPR leagues, then all of a sudden maybe you want to target guys like Shane Vereen. If you get really cheap, you can look at Danny Woodhead, Roy Halou, things like that. So, Isaiah Crowell, it's not necessarily the best situation, but if you're getting him for, $8 or something, he could very well be the starting running back there to start the season anyway. So, yeah, there's lots of options. TJ Yeldon goes for under $20, and he seems like, he's going to be the lead dog there. Yeah. So, to me, there's lots of guys. Joig Bell, depending on how you feel about his injuries, he goes for under $20 right now. So, yeah, is there any clear-cut RB1s? No, but is there guys that could approach that RB1 depending on your scoring? Yeah, I think by the end of the year there are some guys. So definitely it's gaining steam this year, this RB or late RB strategy, RB0, whatever you want to call it. So,
was there anything to add? Ray Rice? Sorry.
Oh, well, Ray.
Well, I was listening to somebody today. They think that he'll still be the starter in Dallas by like week 3.
Ray Rice in Dallas?
Yeah. Oof. I heard someone say it today.
Well, if they probably are. There's a lot of guys out there. Chris Ivory, Ahmad Bradshaw, Pierre Thomas. There's a lot of guys out there that, if they wanted to go and grab somebody, then they could. And that's scary because in a lot of drafts I've grabbed Joseph Randall, hoping that he would get the job and keep it.
I took Bradshaw, I think, in the last round of the Scott Fish Bowl, just in case.
Oh, you did, eh?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
So you've finally done that one.
Yeah, we just
Yeah, no,
finished
there's a
that
lot of
this
guys
morning,
out
just
there.
kidding.
There's a lot of guys out there that I wrote a bit of an article on today. That when you're doing mocks and you're spending your money, and you're like some guys go in there and say, oh, I'm going to try this mock with a big name quarterback and a good running backs or whatever. I'm going to go into this mock spending all my money on my first 3 wide receivers and blah 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 blah. But that's kind of good. You get a feel, but you got to actually go in and put numbers to names, and you got to go in and say, okay, here's some average auction values. They can get them right off our site, and here's what I've been kind of allotting. I want to get one running back in this range, and here's the guys that I can target. I want to get 2 or 3 receivers in this range, and so these will be the guys I target. This is what I'm going to have left over after. So here's some guys I can look for, and there are a lot of running backs out there that can potentially put up points for you. Even I've seen Gore going, he's going to be a little bit more, but he's not going to be going at the $45, $50 range. And Melvin Gordon, T.J. Eldon, Latavius Murray, Lamar Miller, Jonathan Stewart. I've never liked him before in my life, but I actually would take him on my team this year. So there's a lot of guys out there that you could really fill that running back spot with. And, depending on how big your bench is, if you're not going to go with any big names, you grab 5, 6, 7 of these guys, and you're going to have 2 solid starters every week. You play the running back roulette.
Speaking of running backs, just a heads up, I guess, for everyone listening. Next week we're going to get into a live mock auction. So if you're listening, we're going to be live on the air during our mock. We won't do the whole thing because it takes a little bit longer than that hour 4 minutes we happen to always come in at. And then following that, we'll be doing positional stuff, and we will have an RB special heading into the final weeks of August. So keep in mind for that, over an hour of just RBs. So keep that in mind. We'll do it for wide receivers. We'll do it for quarterbacks, tight ends. We lump those together as well. So keep that in mind. Anyways, we're going to move forward. Blister, I'm going to throw it to you here for the first one. For the first take on the question. Jared Hines at Senior Hines. Will Martavis Bryant be worth the $10 or $15 versus the $3 to $7 whoa.
Slam a beer. You got marbles in your mouth tonight, man.
I haven't had a beer since the golf trip. I think that's what it is. My body's going through shakes. Kendall Wright. So, Blister, Martavius Bryant, $10 to $15, or the $3 to $7 for Wright. Notice how I skipped Kendall.
I still want Bryant. Even if Bryant is going for a little more, if he's getting up to that $19, $20 range, I like his potential. He'd be coming in probably as, maybe my wide receiver 3, and I like the potential ceiling that he has. Kendall Wright, we've been having expectations from him for quite a while now, and he kind of has been disappointing. We've expected him to be a PPR monster, and he hasn't been that great. He's maybe 70 catches or so on average, a little bit better, but he doesn't find the end zone very often, and he doesn't rack up a ton of yards. So I just like that Bryant, he's young. He started really coming on and being explosive. You could have some small games, but you could have some real explosive games from him, and I just like the fact that his quarterback is a lot more consistent and steady and reliable in Big Ben than we don't know what we're going to get right now out of the rookie quarterback Mariota. So I would spend the money on Bryant and not even think twice about it. Jared actually I think is one of the gentlemen that requested to be in the live mock next week as well. So we got to give him a heads up about that. So I will tweet him up or email or something.
All right. Yeah, we'll try to get that all dialed in. Slim, anything to add about Bryant versus Wright?
Well, like he says, $10 to $15. To me, that's if you can get Bryant for less than $15, you're winning right there. It doesn't matter what he does, but because I feel like he goes for around 20, he's in that group of guys that is kind of league specific. Who might like Brandon Marshall, Deshaun Jackson, Julian Edelman, Keenan Allen. Depending on the league and who you prefer, they can go anywhere from $20 to $17, $16, something like that. The hype train is picking up steam. I kind of joked on Twitter yesterday. I think I'm going to throw a Martavis Bryant tweet out every day that I'm just going to retweet from some expert. Because it's getting ridiculous, and maybe it's going to be well worth it. I mean, he's bulked up, and he's 4% body fat, and Big Ben comes out and says the offense, their goal now is to score 30 points a week. I'm like, this is crazy. Bryant's going to be like wide receiver 1 this year, and his price is I think, going to go up. You'll see a lot of people bite on that, and So buckle up for that. But I still like him, like Blister said. I still like him more than Kendall Wright. Big Ben, we think of him as this awesome quarterback fantasy-wise after last year. You got to realize he did only a lot of this came in 2 games. He had over 80 points in two-game stretch last year that really helped his fantasy points. But I mean, you gotta like hearing that. Hey, we're gonna try and score 30 points a game this year. Mm-hmm. I want that. If they got a legit wide receiver 2 now, they never had that last year. Maybe they can do that. We know what Le'Veon Bell can do. We know what Antonio Brown can do. If Bryant, improved at all, and can become a little more consistent, then why can't he be a solid wide receiver 2? So yeah, I'm taking him over Kendall Wright, with Big Ben throwing him the ball versus we don't know in Marcus Mariota.
So Kendall Wright, AAV right now of $2 and Bryant at $19. So
there's a reason though.
He's out there too. Oh, for sure.
I mean, I don't think that Kendall Wright can hold Bryant's jock this year, and and I'm not saying Bryant's going to be the end all and be all. I just don't want to start drinking the Kool-Aid here, but I don't trust a rookie quarterback. I realize that Kendall Wright's probably the best guy that they have, and if anything, he fits Mariota's game better than any receiver that they have. It's just how many touchdowns are they going to score? How much yardage are they going to be able to accumulate? I'm just not sold there yet.
All right, final question, and Blister will start with, or no, I guess we're starting with you. This one's coming from Facebook. Neil McLeod asks 3 questions, so I'm going to go through
rapid fire.
All 3 of them, rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. You answer them. Ready? Here we go. Will Ryan Mallett deliver in Houston or fall fat? Holy, I need to chug a beer. Fall flat as he has no one to throw to. Slim?
Flat, not necessarily because he has no one to throw to, but because he's not very good, and right now it looks like Brian Hoyer is going to be the starting quarterback.
All right, and second question, what about the number 3 receiver in Oakland? Poor Carr, he says.
Well, I don't feel bad for David Carr. They threw the ball a ton last year because their defense was awful, and now they've got maybe one of the best wide receiver prospects to come out in a while in Amari Cooper. I like Rod Streeter. I think he's underrated, and Crabtree's not a bad wide receiver 3 there. So I actually don't mind the receiving core there. So I kind of like David Carr.
And I'll probably draft a wide receiver from Oakland because I always do. And then on the last one here, he says, "Go Chiefs, go." Does Macklin matter in KC, or is it still going to be the Travis Kelce show?
I think Macklin, of course, matters. I think that he's the best receiver they've had there in a while. Is his production going to go down from Philly? Of course, but I still think he's going to be a viable receiving option there, and why can't he be a wide receiver 2 this year?
All right. Blister, anything to add, Ryan Mallett?
No, he's got great receivers there. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is going to challenge for a top 10 receiver spot this year, and he's got Cecil. Oh, he's got Cecil. Cecil.
All right, Blister, all the wide receivers 3s in Oakland?
Well, I think they got a better receiving core than ever with Cooper and Crabtree in town. And like we said before, they're probably going to run the ball a little more with the new offensive coordinator they have. So I think it's going to help. I think that the offense will be a little better than worse they were last year.
All right, and does Macklin matter?
For sure. Better than Bo. Gives them another option. Better than D-Wayne. Sorry, I forgot, Buck. That was your boy, too. You like all the receivers in that.
Like 6 years ago. Anyways.
Your boy. He did good one year.
That 1 year, I won it.
We had that 1 year.
Oh, well, you said I did it. I did good 1 year. I'm like, yeah, I won it.
Yeah, you did good one.
Yeah.
Didn't the 3 of us? Aren't the 3 of us the last 3 the champs of the league? Slim and then you know me.
Slim?
Big auction.
Yeah.
I think we might be.
Right.
That's
kind of makes sense, eh? When did we start this podcast? 3 years ago. Yeah, that's right. Oh, coincidence? Yeah.
Hey.
Shots fired to the league.
Yeah.
Hashtag shots fired.
When everyone laughed when we walked in with the intro music, and now look at us.
You did that.
I did
that. Listen with that. I was in the corner drinking a beer.
All right. Well, and I think I better be too, because holy cow, marbles. Here we go. All right. Ready? Segment number 2. That's going to sound really weird on the pod. Segment number 2 is the fantasy football news, buy or sell. So in the fantasy football buy or sell, we take a look at some important news items and whether or not the fantasy implications of those are, well, going to be relevant. Our boys tell us if they're going to buy or sell those implications. First one here, and it's a big one. It came out today, this afternoon. Pittsburgh Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell has had his 3-game suspension reduced to 2, according to the USA Today reporter Jarrett Bell. So we all know he was suspended, yada, 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 but they came up with the official ruling that they've reduced it to 2. So, Blister, I'm going to start with you. Buy or sell? Without a doubt, Le'Veon Bell is the RB1, and not an RB1, but the RB1, and the number 1 pick, or number 1 player overall in your rankings.
You know what? Overall, maybe not. Maybe Antonio could still be number 1 now, but Le'Veon Bell will be the number 1 running back for sure. I was looking at last year's stats. I mean, he finished number 1 last year in PPR. So say he misses the 2 games and you take up, just assuming he has the same average fantasy points per game as he did last year, you subtract those 23 times 246 points, and he's still, he was still almost ranked in the number, would have been number 3, but I don't think the 2 guys behind him last year, DeMarco Murray was only 9 points back of him, and Matt Forte was 24 back. I just don't think that they're going to produce to the same level they did last year. The next guy, the only 4 guys made it over 300 fantasy points in PPR. That was Le'Veon, DeMarco, Forte, and Marshawn Lynch. I think that he can miss the 2 games and still be on top of the heap next year, so I buy that.
All right, next one coming to you, Slim. More breaking news. All the suspension stuff came out from the commission today, I guess. So big news here. Tom Brady's suspension will be upheld. So Roger Goodell has upheld the Patriots quarterback's 4-game suspension for violating the league's policy on integrity. We've heard, and I don't need to go into Deflategate much more than that. But Slim, buy or sell? With this news, it confirms that Tom Brady will not finish as a QB1 this year.
I buy it. This has kind of been the news I've been ultimately waiting for to finally, cement where I would put Brady in my rankings. And I'm sure there's a chance that this could change. I mean, I know the process isn't over. We heard about it all day. It was all over Twitter. It was all over the talk radio shows and on TV and everything, sports talk shows. So, yeah, I don't think we've heard the end of this by any means, but I'm not putting him up there. If he misses 4 games, it's just hard. And especially it's such a logjam kind of outside of, the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks. And they're no slouches. I mean, guys like Phillip Rivers and Ryan Tannehill and Cam Newton, we expect them to, put up decent points. And barring injury, I don't see, how they miss enough games or Brady puts up enough monster games in those games where he does play to overcome this gap. So I can't put him as a QB1.
All right, Blister, moving to you. Todd Gurley will begin training camp on the active roster. So the Rams are prepared to let the rookie running back start camp on the non-football injury list if need be, but apparently there's no need to. According to Jim Thomas of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Gurley has passed his conditioning test on Tuesday, today, impressively was quote-unquote in the article, and he will begin camp on the active roster. Blister, buy or sell? By not starting on the PUP list or on the non-football injury list, Gurley will go for at least a 40 smash in this year's auctions.
Well, I'm going to sell. I think he's going to move up the boards quite a bit now, but I don't know if he's going to get into that $40 range. One article I wrote today, there's just so many guys that go around that can cost that much money, right? There's only so much money in the draft, but I do definitely see him probably costing you between $25 and $35 now. So he might not hit that $40 range, but definitely going to be moving up. As we were talking not that long ago, we were talking about, is he going to start the year? Are they going to put him on the PUP list? Are they going to ease him into it? Well, he's reporting to camp in great condition, and it looks like he's going to be starting at the start of the year. So he is going to be moving rapidly up draft boards, and auction dollars are going to be flying. To get to the $40 range, I don't know. I still think there's some guys ahead of him that are going to pull down that kind of money, and there won't be enough money left to pay that money for him. But it could be a good, very good value for you.
Okay, quick for both of you, name games. So Todd Gurley right now, his AAV before today, which is Tuesday, was $25. Slim, Gurley or Melvin Gordon?
Gordon.
Blister, Gordon or Gurley?
Well, I had Gordon before, but I'm going to really be watching this closely now. I'll stick with Gordon for the time being.
Okay.
I'll save you some time. Anybody you say, I'm going to pick them over Gurley, because to me he's one of the most I think he's overpaid at $25 right now. I really do right now.
I'm surprised that value is so high.
They're gonna ease him in. Even if he is ready for week 1, he's not gonna get a full workload. Fisher goes easy with rookies. I mean, is he gonna, the $40? Jeremy Hill's at $40. Is anybody taking Gurley over Jeremy Hill realistically gonna take?
Right.
Never.
Yeah.
Never. Why? I don't understand why you give me Justin Forsett over Todd Gurley. I'm gonna take Justin Forsett every time over Todd Gurley.
So should you be just licking your lips about Trey Mason at $2?
No, I'm not going to go there. I mean, would I take him? Yeah, if I can get him as my RB5 or 6 for $2, sure, why not? But I don't want him as my RB3 because I do think Gurley will get enough touches to make Mason, fantasy irrelevant in terms of weekly starting. I think that Mason gets touches every week still, but especially more so at the early on in the year. But I was reading a beat writer from St. Louis today who still figures that Mason's going to be involved fairly heavily to start the season, just because Gurley's not. They've said he's not guaranteed to miss 6 games or something like that. It doesn't really change the fact that he's still coming off an injury. They're still going to ease him in. I mean, you don't want to rush your 10th overall draft pick off a knee injury and say, here you go, week 1, here's 20 touches, especially when they play Seattle. Let's let Cam Chancellor or Earl Thomas get 10 free shots at this knee right now. So, I don't know. The hype's going to get crazy. I guarantee on Gurley.
Let's start some
fun, I
hype.
think.
It happens with rookies all the time. Let's do it.
Malcolm Brown.
Drive the price up.
No, start some hype on Malcolm Brown, another rookie they drafted this year. Because,
I don't know.
I mean,
Can we?
everything I'm reading.
You trying to sell him in the Dynasty League? Is that why?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. He's sick, guys.
Exactly.
Benny
He's
Cunningham.
sick. Everything I've been reading, you're going to trade Gurley for some draft picks, and they're going to have Malcolm Brown starting by week 6. So, whoever I made that offer to, you should have took it.
Should have took it.
Oh, well.
All right. Slim, last one here on the buy or sell. The Cowboys apparently have been in contact with Chris Johnson. So we kind of know that right now it's been the Joseph Randle kind of maybe going to lead things. And, there's a little bit of sleeping going on Darren McFadden. Ryan Williams get cut today?
Did he?
Yeah.
I thought I read that somewhere that he got cut already today. So he won't even really make it to the cap.
Slashed him.
Yeah, anyways, so the Cowboys are no doubt probably looking for someone to lead that backfield. So that could include Chris Johnson, the former tight end's first-round pick who struggled with the Jets last season and remains unsigned. So Slim, buy or sell? If CJ2K signs with the boys, he will live up to his nickname and reach that 2,000-yard mark again this year.
Well, I'm going to sell the fact that this is actually a real question, and I'm also going to sell the fact that CJ2K would ever reach 2,000 yards again. I'm going to sell the fact that he even becomes a Cowboy. I was, and goes back to what you said earlier in the podcast. Follow beat writers. These guys have their ear to the ground more than any of us ever could on specific teams. Some guys on Twitter today, beat writers, said that there is virtually zero chance that Chris Johnson gets signed by the Cowboys. So I'm not holding out any hope there. I don't get why any team would sign him right now. He's done. He's done. He's been terrible the last couple seasons, and so I don't get why any team would even want to waste their time with him. But I'm selling all this. avoid Chris Johnson at all costs, talk him up to your most gullible league mates, and hopefully they spend their money on him.
Blister, anything to add there? Again, Ray Rice.
No, I just hope that that's right, because like I said, I've been getting a lot of shares of Joseph Randall, hoping that he is the man. So, no, hope Slim's got her.
I hope Slim's got her. All right, guys, let's move into the meat of the podcast here. Let's take a look at our overvalued versus undervalued players. So I just kind of had an idea we'd go through some positional stuff, and if you had guys you wanted to add to the list, by all means, go. What I did was we just kind of put on a new, well, let's call it a metric on the membership site. Well, actually, if you take a look under the free area too, you can take a look at the top 15 or 16 players at each positions as well. But what we've done is we've taken our player rankings and thrown them together with our average auction values, our AAV, and then we were trying to take a look at a way like how can you find value out of these numbers. So what we did was we took a look at the consensus average that we have, and we ranked all of our players according to that. Along with that, we have a corresponding average auction value, and those fluctuate as like our rankings do as we move through training camp, as we move through the preseason. We took all of those average auction values, and then I ranked those in order, right? So like right now, the most expensive running back is $62, and the 10th running back is $41. So I just kind of listed those all in order. So then we take a look at the average auction value, and we find the difference between that and the positional rank value. So we're calling that the PRV, to find something called the value indicator. So this is like a one-stop shop on our website right now where you can take a look at player rankings, how much they're going for today, average, the hours and hours and hours the boys are spending in mock auctions right now. So what is the positional rank? What is the average auction value? And then what's the difference there? And is there value or not value? So we're just going to kind of go through some of these players right now as far as what we see them today in July 28th and go from there. Anything, Slim? I know that you and I were talking quite a bit as we put up this new metric of the VI, the value indicator. Anything to add to that I missed?
No, I think, like you said, it's just, to me, it's a really easy, quick indicator of guys that we think will outperform the prices that they're being bought at. And that's as simple as you can say it, really. Yeah. I mean, if you see a guy with a big negative number, that's a guy that you should think about targeting. And maybe, you think, okay, I'm going to maybe read a little bit more on Ben Roethlisberger. Why do these guys have him ranked on average just outside the top 5 of quarterbacks, or as their quarterback 5 this year? So when most people draft him much lower than that. So why do these guys think he's such a good value? And conversely, why is it that, I mean, this will make a little more sense now today with the news that came out, but why do these guys devalue Tom Brady so much versus everybody else? So like I said, it's just a quick little metric. Is it a perfect system? Of course not. It's just, but it's giving you a guideline to say, hey, this is what the majority of the masses are doing out there. What are the trends, that I can use? How can I use these trends or whatever to improve my fantasy team based on what the noobs. And some of these noobs will be in your draft. What they're doing, what are they reading then that is making them overreact to things, and how can I use that to my advantage?
So Blister, and like we tell the guys, tell the listeners all the time, you just use this as a tool, but ultimately you're creating your own tiers and your own cheat sheets and all of those things too, like you did today, and we're going to post out there on the website in the well, hopefully I can get it out there tomorrow, right? So using this tool, is it something that would help you out with your tiers?
Well, I think it's a great idea. Like I said before, like even I think back to last year, the guys that I had did really well for me, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. Think back to last year. Those guys weren't your top-ranked guys, right? People might have had some of them in the top tier, maybe the second tier, but in my mind, I liked them, and I was hoping, I knew I could get them. I felt they could have produced at that top-tier level, but for less than what it would cost me for all the other top tier names, right? So you're always trying to predict that and get that kind of an edge. So if you think you can get top tier production for less money, then that's what it's all about, and that's basically what this is kind of helping us determine, right? We're looking at how much guys are going to go for. If I look at it and think, well, Antonio Brown should cost me $50 or whatever, and he's going for 60 or something like that, or whatever the case. I mean, maybe he's not a good example because he's probably the number one receiver off the board right now. But as you get down, maybe your 5th, 6th, 8th, 12th, 15th receiver, in my mind, say I like Golden Tate, for example, because he had a good year last year, but most other people aren't paying that much money for him, but I still think he could put up comparable numbers. Well, then that's a guy that I can wait and jump on based on, and this changes, these numbers change, so that's why you got to keep on top of things. If you're drafting on Monday, for example, or next week or 2 weeks from now, you need to stay on top of those values at the time because news comes out and things change. For example, like if Joseph Randle becomes a starter and it's official, boom, his value is going to go significantly higher than what it is right now. Le'Veon Bell's 2-game suspension. I mean, he wasn't really not getting drafted. Like, he seemed to be getting drafted as if he wasn't suspended at all anyways, but now I think there's going to be, without a doubt, that's going to change things. So news changes and people's values change, and you got to stay on top of it. But that tool that you guys have put together is friggin' bang on. That's exactly what everybody should have.
Well, and I just thought while you were saying, like last year you mentioned Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, so I just pulled up my cheat sheet that I made available to all the members last year. I made it and I just threw it out there, and guys can do whatever they want with it, throw it in the garbage, tweak it, whatever they want to do. But Antonio Brown I had listed as a tier 3 wide receiver last year, and I was willing to spend somewhere in the $37 range for him. I don't know, I don't have the actual numbers what you spent on him. I do on paper somewhere, but not on my computer. And Le'Veon Bell I had as a 3rd tier running back at $48. I had that tier going for. So trying to find the value, eh?
He might have went for around that. I can't remember right now. I was going to see. I thought I had my 2014 tiers handy somewhere too.
You know who else I had in that tier that really blew up last year, Blister, was Monty Ball.
He blew up a couple fantasy teams, that bastard.
Blew up our high stakes league.
Yeah. Thought I'd just throw that out there.
That's so sad, eh? So sad that he did that.
Anyways,
doesn't even know.
So that's the new metrics we have here. Right? The VI, the value indicator, taking a look at average auction value, which in auction leagues is that ADP, the average draft position, and then basically just saying, like, how does that go with positional rank and trying to find values. So one guy that we're going to go through different positions here, and if you guys want to add guys, by all means, go ahead. One guy that really stood out to me when I looked at the quarterbacks, and we've talked about him a couple times already, is Ben Roethlisberger. So right now we have him as an average auction value, AAV of $9, and he's our consensus number 5 quarterback. He's the QB5 that we have him listed right now. The QB5 in drafts in general is going for $21. So if Big Ben finishes as a top 5 quarterback and you spent $9 on him, you're getting yourself a hell of a deal. So his VI is minus 12. Blistered, because I know that you really follow that Antonio Brown train a lot. Talk to us about Big Ben and why you have him right now listed as your number 5 quarterback.
Well, I just think, like Slim alluded to earlier in the pod, they want to try to put up 30 points a game. Last year, he had 608 pass attempts, just under 5,000 yards, and he threw 32 touchdowns with only 9 picks. And he was 5 last year, ranked number 5 last year. I think the offense is going to be better this year. I think that I still don't think their defense is great. It's not the old steel curtain that we're used to seeing in past years, so I think they're going to be forced also. Forced to throw the ball. It's only going to help the fantasy numbers on the offensive side. Martavis Bryant is emerging. Marcus Wheaton could be a good little slot receiver. So I think he's going to have a number of good options there in the passing game. And once Le'Veon Bell comes back, he'll have the number 1 running back in the league. So I just don't see that offense really taking a step back this year. If anything, just getting a little bit better. So, I'm pretty excited about their opportunities. With 608 pass attempts last year, there was only, 1, 2, 3... maybe just two or three other quarterbacks that attempted more. So, they're going to fling the ball quite a bit. So, and I think, the first couple games now, it's only 2 games now with Le'Veon out, but with him out for 2 games, they might go to the air even more and find their reliable targets in Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant. So if you're playing daily fantasy, maybe look into some of those secondary, third, tertiary receivers in Pittsburgh, because they could be really lighting it up. Yeah, that's huge, eh? I don't know where that came from. I won't use that ever again, but dear Lord. Anyways, daily fantasy, keep that one in mind. Marcus Wheaton.
Oh, Marcus Wheaton, I've heard of him.
Yeah, so you know him.
Nothing?
That was.
Nothing that took so long, you guys. I thought.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Slim, just why do you think that? I mean, there's not haters. If we look at the PRV, which is that positional ranking value, Ben Roethlisberger is probably hovering in that QB8 range, and I mean we have him at QB5. But why do you think some of the people out there are looking more towards a low-end QB1 for him?
Because it's name. I think a lot of people are still taking Drew Brees, quite high. Which, don't get me wrong, I don't dislike Drew Brees, but I think after you get outside of kind of these marquee names, and Tom Brady would be in this group if it wasn't for what's going on, and I think you'll see him drop now. So to me, there's 5 guys. There's Luck, Rodgers, Wilson, Manning, Breeze, that people really look to and they think that, these guys are going to carry my fantasy teams. And actually, one of the last mock drafts I did, we got into Breeze went very cheap, and this guy was losing his mind on there. And I kind of finally said, "Okay, relax, Saints fan." He goes, "No, I'm not even a Saints fan. I can't see why they're gonna, not pass the ball still." And
because their whole offseason has been telling you they're not going to.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I don't think they're just going to quit passing the ball. Don't get me wrong, but sure. Are they going to throw less? Yeah, of course. And so Breeze should drop down a bit, and we're just not seeing him go below Roethlisberger, which to me is the mistake. Lister's brought it up. We saw how many passes they attempted last year. They know the defense isn't good. They have one of the best receiving running backs in the league. I mean, we could get into the whole Levy and Bell discussion if we want to, but like the numbers he put up last year were ridiculous. So
83 catches, I think.
Yeah, like I think he had over 1,000 receiving yards. So I mean, and yeah, Martavis Bryant's going to be a year better.
50.
What?
Sorry, cut out. How many?
83 grabs last year.
Okay.
Pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, he was sweet, and so yeah, I mean, I just think people don't necessarily buy in, and especially like after this top group, and we've seen it last year, and we've talked about it this year. There's just this glut of quarterbacks, Eli Manning, Matt Ryan, Tony Romo, Phillip Rivers, Cam Newton, all these guys. Who really differentiates themselves to the masses? Nobody. We all kind of look at them as being the same. When we just look at them with this general blanket that we try to look at them with, instead of diving into the numbers and really trying to look at, all right, specifically what is each offense going to try and do, and how can we differentiate some of these guys? And I think that's why we have Ben Roethlisberger rated a little bit higher than what the general public sort of does.
Mm-hmm. So let's just take a look at some of these guys, maybe not late round, sorry, thinking about JJ, just guys that you're going to be maybe looking to stream that could be undervalued, that have potential to be maybe not QB1s, but high-end QB2s. So Blister, is there anybody down in that like QB20, QB17 type of a range that you think has some pretty good value and shouldn't be sitting down there?
Well, Carson Palmer is one that, when I did that one article earlier, I mean, he had good numbers when he was healthy last year, and he's got a good receiving core there still. I think he could still move up and challenge, for top 12 if he stays on the field. I'm quite interested to see what Teddy Bridgewater does this year. Colin Kaepernick, how he bounces back. That's his off-season training. Some of these guys too. When I did an article earlier about streaming quarterbacks, Carson and Teddy and Cap, and some of these guys had some really favorable matchups. Especially, I think off the top of my head, maybe 3 of the first 4 weeks, Carson Palmer had just some juicy matchups. So, I'm not worried at all when I go into my auction about paying, big dollars. I'm thinking paying $2 and getting a couple quarterbacks and being quite happy with it, because I think even Geno Smith could have big weeks. What was I going to say? Mariota and Winston, they both have some great matchups this year too. So, they're rookies, but as the season wears on, nobody's going to be taking them probably in your redraft leagues at all. Robert Griffin, he has some great matchups as long as he rebounds. And, at one point he was a top 3 fantasy quarterback or something like that in one of his first years there. So there's a lot of guys down there in that dollar range that if you're not going to, Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and I like Cam to go for the most money and probably be pretty consistent. But I really think you can get production very similar to them by spending $2 and $3 on about 2 or 3 different guys and just rotating them in and out and not being worried to drop one when he's got a bad matchup for a 2 or 3 week stretch and picking up somebody else, because I really do think that the quarterbacks down there can put up some good numbers. So
Blister, I just brought up your article. If you head to our website, thefantasyfootballauction.com, and you actually have to go to page 2 because we've been putting out a lot of stuff here. So this is back from June 20th that Blister put this out there. But you're mentioning the juicy matchups in the first few weeks. Carson Palmer has New Orleans in week 1, Chicago week 2.
Terrible defense.
Yeah, and you don't have them listed in week 3. I'm not sure if that's because you have the bye or whatever. I'm just looking. And then St. Louis in week 4.
Yeah, it's probably because I was looking at each week when they played one of the the lower second, the worst pass defenses from based on last year.
Right.
So if maybe in week 3 he doesn't, it may just not be a juicy matchup for him. But
so if that means anything heading into this year, which sometimes the rankings does, sometimes it doesn't for defense. Number 24 pass rated defense of New Orleans in week 1. The number 31 ranked pass defense in Chicago in week 2. Not listed in week 3, week 4, where you're streaming quarterbacks. He's playing St. Louis in as the 19th ranked pass defense. Week 6 at Pittsburgh, the 25th ranked defense, and on and on and on. So yeah, pretty good, pretty juicy matchups. You're 100% right. So anyways, that article is on there. You can check it out. It's called Streaming Fantasy Football Quarterbacks in 2015. Slim, anyone that's in that streaming category down there, Carson Palmer-ish, that you're interested in?
Well, I like Palmer. I also like Jay Cutler. Believe it or not, I mean, we've beat
wow.
We've beat his. We beat his price into the ground now, so low. And this is what I love about auctions and any draft, I guess. I mean, when people just can pile on a guy so much that drives his price down cheap enough, he becomes a buy now, even though you hate owning him. But I mean, he's still got Alshon Jeffrey. He's still got Forte as his release valve. He's still got Martellus Bennett. He's got weapons there. I don't see if he can limit the turnovers, he should be. To me, he's a guy who can approach low-end QB1 numbers. Another guy for me is Andy Dalton, and I hate his guts as a fantasy owner as much as I hate Cutler's. But what I like about Dalton is
if you stream him at home though,
and against soft defenses, the thing that, and this is the best about Dalton, is you can virtually predict the games with pretty good certainty that he's going to do well in. Because the guy, if you look at his splits, and I saw this on Twitter about a week ago, somebody put up against top defenses, and they quantified a top defense by some metric and then a bottom feeding defense. And against the bottom defenses, his numbers are just night and day difference. So to me, he's the perfect streaming guy because
I streamed him to a championship 2 years ago.
you just use him against the good matchups for him or the crappy passing defenses like Pittsburgh. The guy always seems to do fairly well against Pittsburgh. Why is that? Well, because their secondary is garbage. And yeah, he goes against decent defenses. He can't do that. He's not that good of a quarterback, but he can feast on the shitty ones. So to me, if I'm streaming, he's a guy I really want in my team because it makes my life a hell of a lot easier. And this is why a lot of people don't like to stream. They don't like the stress of picking. Well, Andy Dalton's making it easy for you. So if you're non-defensive about streaming, take Dalton and just try it out. He's one of the best guys to do it with. So yeah, those are a few guys that I would target if I was going to stream this year.
That year I won, I literally played him whenever he played at home. That was it. There's no decision making. Oh, they got a home game? Andy Dalton. No
Especially
home
with
game.
AJ Green coming back, like he was banged up a lot last year.
And then that was also
be
the year I
there.
picked up Foles on the waivers too, which helped. But
yeah, it did.
that kind of
didn't help so much last year.
Yeah, no, I didn't pick him up on the waivers last year. But anyways, so overvalued guys at quarterback. One that really stood out for me was Drew Brees. We spoke to him a little bit earlier too. Right now we have him as a consensus ranking of he's a QB7, but so that would make his a QB7 would be a positional value of about $9. But right now, an average auction value, like something you spoke to before when you got into it in the mock, right now he's going for about $21 in mock. So, Blister, do you have anything to add to the Drew Brees? Because I know Slim already spoke to him a little bit earlier. Or we can
I just thought he started to decline a bit last year. I mean, he still attempted to throw the ball a lot, but he lost Jimmy Graham, and right now the jury's out on their tight end. Like, they don't seem to have a lot of faith in Josh Hill. Everyone was hoping that he would be the man, but they've been trying to bring in tight ends. They were trying to bring in Jermaine Gresham, but he got signed elsewhere, and they've been looking at some different guys. I just think that they are going to try to run the ball, unless he gets a lot of passing yards from dumping it off to C.J. Spiller or something like that. I just think the Drew Brees era, is starting to fade a little. Cooks is going to be probably heavily targeted. I wouldn't mind owning him. Marcus Colston could have a nice comeback year, but it really falls off after that. So I just think that, I wouldn't be paying $21 for Drew Brees. Like, now, like, with what they've done to that offense, it just seems ridiculous. People must still be living in the past or a huge Saints fan to pay that kind of money for him.
Well, $21. So you spend $2 on two quarterbacks to stream, let's say, and that moves you from T.Y. Hilton to Antonio Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Or it moves you from Keenan Allen.
We could get into this all day. This is why we always preach stream. Why would you do that when you can get Tony Romo for a quarter of that? But and some of that is because, I mean, let's face it, the quarterback position, it takes a huge nosedive after, that second tier or whatever of quarterbacks. You get Luck and Rodgers kind of in a league of their own, and some people might put Wilson in there. But then you get, I think the consensus kind of says, all right, it's Peyton Manning and Russell Wilson, and I know Blister kind of likes Cam and Ben Roethlisberger, but after that, it can plummet. And so I think that's what we're maybe seeing a little bit with Brees is a lot of people still put him at the back end of that maybe second tier, and after that it's just kind of a bunch of mediocrity in terms of you can get a lot of guys that'll do the same thing, and for guys like us when we draft, we see him with those guys, whereas like Blister said, I think a lot of people think of the past Drew Brees and still hold him in that that higher standard, with the Peyton Mannings and to some extent, even to the Aaron Rodgerses and things like that. So I just think it's a little skewed, and that's what you get with the quarterback position though. But just something to keep in mind.
I don't know, and I look at the offseason moves and I go, okay, so you bring in a big meaty center and you get rid of your top pass catcher. That tells me you're a little bit more inclined to run the football, especially when you don't bring in anybody at the wide receiver position and you get rid of Kenny Stills and just tells me that like we're gonna give Mark Ingram the ball, and you know, Cooks is gonna fall into an Edelman type of a situation, and which it can be okay for, you know, I mean, but Tom Brady we just talked about is falling out of that top QB area, and for fantasy purposes, you know, versus real football, I think there's where you see the big difference, right? So I just think let the team tell you what they're doing. It's pretty obvious to see at times. It doesn't mean they're not going to throw, but they're definitely not going to throw the same.
Well, that's the biggest thing. Just not as much, right? I mean,
Yeah. He had 659 attempts last year. Drew
You know,
Brees.
and people could probably argue, well, their defense isn't potentially that good, so they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. And that might be true too, but I just think that Brees I think his abilities might have taken a little bit of a hit, you know, with the age, and I think that he doesn't have the same people to throw it to, which is a big thing. Big thing.
Does he throw 600 passes this year?
no,
Like he threw
I don't think so.
659.
I'm just going to turn this into the Saints podcast just right now because to me this is one of the most polarizing team storylines, at least of the offseason. I mean, they lost Jimmy Graham. They brought in, you know, CJ Spiller, and we know that they got Breeze and Sean Payton's still there. And to me, I looked at it and I kind of sat down the other day, ironically enough, about a week ago, and I was actually really thinking about the pieces that they have. And everybody said, okay, you know, you trade Jimmy Graham, you know, for this center, you get Unger, and you spend your first round pick on a tackle. And to me, I'm kind of in the middle. Some people think, they're just going to run the ball, and this is where I think Mark Ingram owners are going to be disappointed. If you're one of the people that really think they're going to run, like I have Mark Ingram as my RB16, which is not a bad thing. Some people think he's going to be easy RB1, low end RB1, which I'm tempering. I think there's other guys in his area that will, you know, guys like Frank Gore have a better shot of becoming an RB1 than Ingram, because I look at it, just because you get a center and just because you draft a tackle doesn't mean you're just going to say we're going to run the ball all the time. I look at it like Breeze got pasted a lot last year. They brought those guys in to keep their small, older quarterback off of his ass. And let's face it, they're going to need him to win games. So Cooks is going to get targets. And I think that Ingram owners are going to be bummed out when they see Spiller, which is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen every week, but could it happen 50% of the time? Sure. Can he catch 6, 7 passes, 8 passes a game? Yeah, I think for sure he can. I mean, they lost 200 targets. Those aren't just going to vanish into thin air. Cooks is going to get some. Colston might get a few more. Josh Hill is going to get some. Is he going to get what Graham caught? That'd be insane of anybody to think that. So CJ Spiller is brought in not to run between the tackles. He's there to catch passes, and that's going to be less touches for Ingram. And some of these people that love Ingram just think, he's going to get force-fed the ball, and yeah, he's probably going to get some red zone looks and some touchdowns. They lost Jimmy Graham. They're going to have to run the ball in the red zone more, but CJ Spiller is going to take a lot of Ingram's touches, and not necessarily rushes, but touches. If you look at how many touches this offense is going to get, they're still going to have to pass it because they don't necessarily have the personnel to just pound it all the time. So, like I said, I'm kind of in the middle, and this is why I like CJ Spiller. I have him as my RB13 in PPR leagues, because I think he's going to catch a lot of passes because they're going to have to still throw the ball, and they don't have tons of other guys to fill the void of what they gave up. So I can't wait to see what happens, though. I really can't.
It is an interesting storyline for sure. As you move into CJ Spiller, let's just move into running backs, guys. We've you're right. It's been a Saints podcast, but that's okay. It's interesting. But we do want to talk about some of the other positions here. How about you guys just each name a guy that you think is going undervalued, and then we'll go into overvalued after that. So, Blister, is there an RB out there that you think that the hype train is just chugging a little too fast.
Going too fast. Wow. Skip me.
Skip you.
Carl's high.
So like guys that I had on our list, according to the new VI metric, were Matt Forte, Justin Forsett, Joique Bell. Anybody in there, or somebody else you're thinking, Blister?
Well, I'm not a real big Joique fan this year. I mean, our value to me looks like he is a bit of a value according to our numbers, I guess, if it's a negative, right? But
Yeah.
I'm just worried. He's coming off some injuries. He's not that old. They brought in Amir Abdullah. I'm not too excited. I don't think I'm going to be a Joique owner this year. He's a guy to kind of look at. I was writing down a couple other ones from just some of the work I did earlier here. But I didn't have any running backs in that list. I had Breeze and Brady and T.Y. Hilton as.
Well, here I'll throw to Slim if you want to take a quick look through stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Slim, go ahead. What do you got for undervalued RBs?
Undervalued. Undervalued.
Sorry, I guess I said that wrong, right? It's undervalued. Yeah, no, I apologize. You're right. So it's supposed to be undervalued. Okay. These guys with the negatives are.
That's where you threw me off.
I apologize. Sorry. Bad
Justin Forsett is a guy that, I mean, everybody kind of freaks out that Trestman's gone. I still think that he's going to be integral to this offense, and in a PPR league. And this is what I'm basing most of my rankings on because most of the leagues I play in are PPR leagues now. So I have him as an RB1, and I like him as a guy who could, finish as, somewhere like the RB7 or something like that, pretty easily even. So to me, he's undervalued. His age, everyone thinks he's just going to disappear, but you know what? In this case, we're not talking about dynasty. Yeah, I get it. In dynasty, he's doesn't have tons of value, but in a redraft, yeah, man, like if you want a cheap RB1, he's a guy you should be looking at. So he's probably my biggest undervalued guy at the moment. I don't know. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head that really jumps out to me as an undervalued guy. I don't know. Blister probably. I know he's probably got one name if he looks down. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
so
I mean,
go ahead. Yeah. I was just going to say we have, like, Slim has him at 10, Blister has him at 12, I have him at 11 as far as Forsett goes. Average auction value of 30, but positionally the 11th running back's going for $40, so that's where that negative 10 VI indicator comes from. So, yeah, the metric shows he's a value too. Blister, what do you got?
Well, Lamar Miller's another one that. Yeah, I know a lot of people aren't really excited to have Lamar Miller in their team yet. Last year he finished as the 9th ranked fantasy running back in PPR. And he goes for substantially less money. There's really nothing in that offense that would suggest he should do any worse than last year. If not, should continue to improve. They didn't bring anybody in to threaten him for his job, so I think they feel secure with him. So Lamar Miller is a guy that, I don't think anybody gets real excited unless you're a real Dolphin fan that you have him on your. Yeah, he's not sexy. He's not a sexy pick. You're right. Other guys too, like Gio Bernard. I think Gio Bernard can still play a pretty good role in that passing offense there. And I think you might grab him for, $4. I mean, he's so cheap nowadays. And realistically, like last year, he was still finished as a what did he finish as, an RB2? The top. Where is he? 16th ranked running back last year, and he only played 13 games. So
wow, and that's. I'm glad you brought him up. Sorry to interrupt, Blister, but I just was thinking of him and I saw a stat. I think he actually finished, and everyone thinks he's just a PPR back. Mm-hmm. He actually finished in a spot ahead. So whatever you said, RB16 or something. Yeah. He was right either in the exact same spot or just ahead, like RB15 in standard leagues, which blew my mind when I saw that stat because I was one of those people who thought, oh, yeah, Jeremy Hill's going to get all the carries and Spiller will have to chip in, with a handful of catches and a little bit of third down work and stuff. But once I heard that, I was like, you know what? I got no problem taking him as an RB2 this year at all. And
Gio Bernard last year, he ran for 680 yards, so that put him as RB22 as far as rushing yards go, and then you add in all that receptions. I mean, and touchdowns out of that department and whatever else. Yeah, he makes him. He's number 11 running back. Only the number 11 running back in receptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Less than half.
He only had 43 catches, but
everyone's just all over. And Jeremy Hill's a talented running back. Don't get me wrong, and he's priced, I think, in a good spot. And it's just because he's there. We got to remember, Andy Dalton sucks. They're not going to say, here you go, here, throw it 50 times a game. They don't want that. They want to control the ball, on the ground, short passes. This is where Gio can excel too. Believe me, do I think that Jeremy Hill has more value than him? For sure he does. He's going to get more touchdowns, most likely, and he's going to get the bulk of the between the tackle work. But Gio Bernard is still a serviceable running back. So we got to get rid of that notion that, this PPR guys, all they do is catch the ball. Well, Gio Bernard, we've always kind of thought that, and that's not the case. So those are sneaky guys in standard leagues, man. That guy can be cheap for you in a standard league.
Giovanni Bernard, I mean, that's not all he does. He's only the 11th running back catching the football. There was 10 guys ahead of him. Matt Asiata caught more passes than he did.
Crazy.
That's incredible.
Anyways, just throwing that out there.
There's lots of good values, like Jonathan Stewart too. I mean, you're going to get him for $8 maybe. I don't know, but I mean, last year he's an RB2, 24th ranked running back last year. I mean, they've always had pretty much a run heavy attack in Carolina. I don't see that changing. I see his numbers going up because he finally isn't in a timeshare with D'Angelo Williams. Even though none of them were either healthy at the same time, but he's a guy that hasn't played a lot over the last few years because he's been banged up as well. But I just think that he could really be a sneaky play. Like I said earlier, it wasn't a guy I ever wanted to own, but he did. I think this year could be the year that you'd want to own them. And other guys that they've kind of there's a lot of rookies that potentially could take off. T.J. Yeldon, Tevin Coleman, but even still in Atlanta, I still think Devontae Freeman is worth a look because he was just a rookie last year. And you know what? They brought him in, and sometimes it takes rookies a bit of time to gel, but they got rid of pretty much everybody else. So it's him and Tevin Coleman. So even if Tevin Coleman does start and he gets banged up, the next guy up is Devontae Freeman. You're going to get him for a couple of dollars probably in your auction. So why not put him on your team, on your bench? Maybe he starts for you for a while until Le'Veon Bell comes back or whatever, or Todd Gurley. Well, he looks like he will play. So you know what? There's a lot of guys out there that after you get out of the first 7, 8 running backs, 9 running backs that might go for more than $40. There's a lot of guys out there that have the potential to put up points like them with the right matchups.
Okay, so Slim, what do you think about for overvalued guys? I mean, we have a couple guys listed there, but you probably have a couple of ideas.
Well, Carlos Hyde to me is a guy, for me personally, who's overvalued. One, we just haven't seen tons from him. Everyone just assumes, and probably fairly, it's his job. And yeah, it is most likely his job. But they brought Reggie Bush in, whom I don't think is very talented anymore, but he's there, and he's going to be used because I think the Niners, unfortunately, for me as a Niners fan, they're going to be losing a lot. They've got, they've lost some pretty big names on defense, which isn't going to help things. Their offensive line has some question marks, so they're going to be losing. They might not be able to run the ball that effectively between the tackles. They're going to need guys on the field that can pass protect, which isn't necessarily a weakness, say for Carlos Hyde, but those are just touches where he's not going to get the ball because I don't see him as much of a receiving threat. If they're losing, I mean, this could be almost a whole half of football where they're going to want a running back on the field to catch passes when they're in 2-minute drill, 4-minute drill type situations. He probably won't be on the field. So I just think, not that he's not talented, I just think his opportunities are going to be limited compared to guys that he's being drafted around right now. So he's a guy at this price range I'm actually avoiding just because, like I said, I think that he's not going to get the looks that others are going to get. that are being drafted in that same area. So like he's going for over $30 right now. I would rather have Justin Forsett, who goes for less than him easily. Like I would even take Frank Gore, Lamar Miller, like Blister said. Those guys, I would rather have them. I just think there's more volume to be had there, and maybe more scoring opportunities too.
He only had 1, 2, 3, 4 double-digit touch games last year, and
well, I mean,
in general, right? But I mean, he had there was 3 weeks there where he had over 10 carries, and in those weeks didn't have any receptions and scored 2 points and 4 points and.
Yeah, and part of it is system. I mean, last year they didn't pat. I mean, who knows what the offense is going to bring this year to some extent. They hopefully are going to pass the ball to the running backs a little bit more. They never did that. But he also played behind Frank Gore, which was the guy didn't get hurt very often, at least in the last few years. So when he was out there, I think he averaged something like 4 yards a carry, right, very, very close to that, maybe slightly over, which isn't awful. It's not phenomenal by any means, but it's okay. And some of that can be attributed. He was brought in like 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s to just smash it in between the pile into the pile and try and pick up 2 yards. So it's hard to get a nice yards per carry average when you're doing stuff like that. So you got to kind of take that a bit with a grain of salt. But I think the biggest thing is he's just not going to get the volume. He's not going to get the number of carries that other guys are going to necessarily get. Like, to me, Frank Gore has as many touches or as many carries as Carlos Hyde, and probably more passes, caught. So why don't you want him over Hyde?
Right. Blister, anyone that you have that's overvalued in that position?
Well, I don't know the exact numbers, but in my own personal opinion, like Joik, I'll go back to Joik Bell. I won't talk about, but he's one guy. Like I said, I probably wouldn't be touching. Alfred Morris is another guy that I'm not sure what he's going for and what the numbers shake out on our site there right now. But he's a guy that I'm not liking. I mean, obviously in PPR for good reason. Last year, the only thing that went up last year for him was his number of receptions. He was down in rushing attempts. He was down in total yards. And his average yards per carry has been declining for the last 3 years since his rookie season. So I see those trends not going in the right direction. They brought in a rookie, Matt Jones. He's supposed to be looking real well in camp, can catch the ball. So that could be taking Elf off the field in 3rd downs. I just see his numbers continuing to decline, and he's not a guy that I'd be looking to own, especially in PPR. And then I take another look at guys like Isaiah Crowell. I mean, that backfield, I don't think you have to pay a whole lot for any of them, but between him, Terrence West, and Duke Johnson, it's such a muddied mess. I mean, you'd almost have to take all 3, but even if you had all 3, you wouldn't know who to start and when, because if last year's evidence to how they play the running backs, if you could be the starter, but then somebody else is better in camp this week, so bang, they're the starter. So there doesn't seem to be any real loyalty to their running game, although they should have to run it. They're going to try to run it probably quite a bit. But those are some guys that I think any value, unless they were $1, probably would be overvalued to me.
Oh, well, Alfie's going for 31 right now.
So that's way over.
Way over $1.
17 would be better for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
And his PRV is at 24,
31.
so that gives him a +7. So by our metric too, that says it's very much overrated. Okay, let's quickly just go into wide receivers, guys, and then we can wrap this up because this is a long podcast. That's why it's good content, guys. Good content. It just means I'm going to be able later. I guess I don't have to go to work in the morning, so that's all right.
That's nice.
Yeah, suck it up. I'll get the growler out yet tonight. So
There
wide
you go.
receivers, Slim, who do you have out there right now listed as someone who's undervalued that you're targeting?
Undervalued that I'm targeting? Brandon Cooks. I'm going to get on that trumpet again. I can't believe he's still undervalued, but he is to me. He's a guy who can easily put up low-end wide receiver 1 numbers this year based on volume, yet still goes for far below that. So, yep, I'm
average auction value of $27 right now.
Cannot believe that people aren't catching on to this yet. And believe me, I'm not holding my breath. I think that it is definitely going to happen. It's just a matter of when. It has climbed a little bit recently, and I think it's probably going to keep climbing. So, yeah, get in while you can.
Blister, what do you think? Who's someone that's undervalued that you like in wide receivers?
Well, going off my draft list, and maybe not what you got in the script, but Jordan Matthews is another guy.
Yeah.
Jordan Matthews, I mean, he's going to be the number one in Philly. He had a great year last year as a rookie, so he's moved up the charts, and he's not bringing down the top dollars like your elite ones. I still like Jarvis Landry. Slim doesn't, but I just think that Tannehill's specialty is not down the field, and Landry was caught a lot of passes last year as a rookie. I don't see that changing. So there's a couple of guys that go quite a bit later in your auction and for a lot less dollars, and I think they could both be very serviceable if you got them as your wide receiver 2 or 3. I think they would put up great numbers for you, and I think those are a couple of guys. That I would target.
No one mentioned Allen Robinson. I mean, isn't this before training camp? Isn't that?
Yeah.
That's low-hanging fruit, isn't it?
I know. Too easy. I know. Too easy.
That hype train pulled away from the station a week ago. Martavis.
One thing that's noticeable though with this metric that we've come up with here is Jordy Nelson, who we talked to earlier, coming off the board at $44, but PRV of 55. So I mean, right there, he is showing some value as far as auction value. If you look at that.
That's because of your ranking. Me and Blister are on the same page, and you just got him up there at number 2 still. Just put him on this pedestal.
But even if you have him at 6, I mean, we have him sitting at 4, so let's say he goes to 6. I mean, he's still sitting Odell Beckham, who we have at 6 at $55, Julio Jones at 50, Calvin Johnson at 49. So
no, it'd still be a value for sure. I mean,
I heard a pod today. Julio Jones is wide receiver 1 and should be the 101 pick.
Yeah, it's gaining steam, believe it or not.
Yeah, the 101.
I can't go there yet, but whatever.
I see.
I'm swinging for the angry Adrian Peterson. If I'm the angry Adrian Peterson, I think has got a lot of chops this year.
He could be nice.
Taking it on a tangent here, going right back to running backs.
No, but I'm just saying, I'm sorry. All right, so there's a couple. You're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Doing a terrible job. I'm not used to having everybody here, and I'm gonna have all my material in front of me. I'm not sitting in a dorm room. I'm I'm all over the map here. All right. So yeah. Anyway, so Brandon Cooks, Blister mentions a couple guys too. Who are some guys, Slim, that you think are overvalued at the wide receiver position?
Calvin Benjamin to me. I don't necessarily like the situation that he's in. I don't like some of the things that he showed last year. I mean, last year he made his living because he was the only receiver that they had. Not that Funchess is going to light the world on fire, but if he can do anything, that reduces his targets a little bit. He dropped passes last year. He's got an inaccurate quarterback. There's just not a lot for me to like where he's being drafted at the moment. So, I mean, I think it seems like a lot of people are looking for, high-end wide receiver 2 production. To me, like, give me Mike Evans there all day over him, or T.Y. Hilton over Calvin Benjamin. So yeah, that's one guy to me that I'm trying to avoid as of right now.
As of right now, yeah.
I mean, this could change, right?
$35. Yeah, camps are just starting up. So, Blister, what are you thinking as far as overvalued?
Well, Sammy Watkins. He comes in with such hype last year, and unfortunately, the quarterback play in Buffalo is not very good. So I just don't think we can have high expectations. I think they're going to run the ball more with LaShawn McCoy. I think that's what the coaching staff is known for as well. So I'm not a big Sammy Watkins fan, and I think paying $30 or more for him is kind of a waste of your money.
He's at 23 right now, which actually puts him positionally at wide receiver 17, We have him down consensus-wise at 32. So yeah, a big difference from what we think what people are drafting.
So, but Sammy for 23, Martavis for say 19. Let's go with the hot. Who would you rather have?
Martavis.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially if I'm going to save $4 on it and roll,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sammy, I mean, yeah.
Better offer.
3 years from now, Sammy Watkins might blow him out of the water, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about this year. And you said it, Blister. Quarterback sacks, man. It's going to kill him this year. And
I think PPR just take Edelman out of all that anyways, and let's go.
In that range, yeah.
I would take Deshaun Jackson over Sammy Watkins, in this price range. Both of them kind of go in that same range. It's not a knock on Sammy. It's a knock on just what's happening in that situation.
Andre Johnson, I think I like better than that, and whatever. I got to go through all my rankings. I spent too much time doing the website that my rankings are just kind of hodgepodge. But this weekend I got to do some work because we got the first big auction for me. Well, I guess first big auction for us, right? Coming up on Monday.
Monday it is.
Yeah, it's my first draft.
Also, in the fantasy or the Auction Kings starts on Monday for me as well.
It does. I think I'm going to sign up for that, Blister.
We're looking for a few more people to fill out another league. So, the more the better. The more the bigger the prize pot goes. So.
The more we talked about it in the vehicle the other day, more kind of
piqued your interest.
A little bit piqued it a little bit. All right. So, anyways, I mean, I don't think we need to talk too much about the kickers and defenses as far as overvalued, undervalued. Even tight ends, I think we've beat that horse to death too, as the top couple of guys.
It's pretty chalky at tight end.
Yeah.
It goes the same.
I'm pretty happy there with that, and I think we got in a lot of overvalued, undervalued with the questions in there as well. So a lot of great content. I don't even know where we are for time, but I know we're way over what we normally are, which is all right.
Oh, yeah.
All right. It's okay. It's all good. So
split it in 2 pods.
Well, yeah, maybe I could.
2 45-minuters.
Yeah, I could do that.
There you go.
I'll see how adventurous I am tonight. Anyways, again, head on over to the website. Take a look at the membership area. It was hot and heavy as far as sales in the last 24 hours. So shout out to people. Hot and heavy? Not good.
Seinfeld.
So that we've had a lot of action that way. We've got guys sending us questions all over the place too, which is awesome. So you can get a hold of us at Fantasy Auction or that auction community that Slim's putting together out there at FF Auction Advice. If you have a long question or some comments, you can do this on Twitter. It's /fantasyfootball-auctioneer, and our email address is footballauctioneer@gmail.com. So that's the ultra-long podcast. Next week, we're going to take a look at a live mock auction. Typically, the way we do it, and we haven't discussed it yet, but typically we each take a different strategy and talk our way through those strategies while we mock. We will be putting up some information if you want to get involved in that mock and see if we can't get some of our listeners involved in the mock as well. I even threw out guys. Mr. Cherney, I talked to him, I sent him out a little comment today. Maybe we could. He's always good for a couple of chirps, and he gave us a good shout out at his sports bar website there too. So
I was looking at. I was actually on his site there today.
Yeah, he gave us a good little shout out there the other day. Yeah. So. Anyway, so that's what's coming up next, and then we're going to go through some positional stuff, and then it's going to be big draft time coming up soon. So, what's that?
So the push is on.
The big push. That's right. I can't believe it's going to be August already here this weekend.
Crazy. It's crazy, man.
It's crazy. But I'm going to be spending lots of time in the rink next week, so Blister, I can just imagine you're going to be texting and tweeting and salivating while kids are on the ice. Dad, did you see that big save? Sure did, honey. Sure.
We got a game tomorrow night. They're gonna be tired. It's a long day. 9 o'clock till 4:30, and then at 6 o'clock they have a game on top of that.
They do that twice too, don't they, during the week?
Yeah, Wednesday and Friday.
Oh, Hayden's new gear comes in Thursday. It's supposed to arrive, so pretty pumped up around.
We come home. Last night we came home and I was showing them a couple things each, just in the living room, and then next thing you know, they're going to take shots. Marley's going to take shots at Maddie in the living room. I said, no. Something gets smashed. can we go outside? And like they're supposed to be in bed. I said, yeah, get outside. So they go outside, and the next thing you know, Marley's got her mouth guard in because she found it somewhere, who knows where. And today she's got a bunch of canker sores. She tells me, I'm thinking, wow, that friggin' moldy old mouth guard you put in your mouth probably had something to do with that. Anyways, the next thing you know, they're out in the lawn in their nighties or their PJs or whatever. Big game of hockey going on. And arguing and fighting about the score. It was great.
Nothing like the life in the hood.
Yeah.
So holidays are for.
That's right.
That's right.
All right, boys. Well, I'm sure I'll talk to you guys via text and Twitter and the Line app and all those things tomorrow. I'll have a feeling I got some good emojis coming for tomorrow.
Oh boy, you guys are really getting good at those.
They're killing me. That's one of the best things about that app. I can't get enough of it. Anyways, and for the rest of you, I'll see you when it's springtime in the Rockies.